Vox hated Alastor. He hated the fact that he wouldn't join him. The V's were very powerful and influential, and he wouldn't join him just because what? He didn't respect him? He thought he wasn't good enough to work with him? It just rubbed him the wrong way. Vox was always angry at Alastor, and one time they fought, and when they did, Vox almost lost everything. He almost lost his existence. He must put an end to Alastor once and for all, and that's when he came up with a plan. Vox knew he couldn't defeat Alastor, even if he hated to admit it, even to himself. And he could bring out the other V's, but Valentino and Velvet, well, they weren't interested in fighting Alastor. They just saw it as a weird pet project that Vox had. You know, a weird thing he was interested in, and they could care less. So Vox needed a plan, and he came up with one. If he can get the Exorcist to destroy Alastor, he can be gone for good. So it was time for him to spring his plan into action. To do this, he needed to play the Exorcist. However, Exorcists weren't idiots, and this will be harder said than done. However, they didn't care who they destroyed, so it should be easy to lure Alastor in. All he had to do was lure him into a fight, wait for the extermination to happen, he'll get wiped out. So he needed to do it a day before, and make sure the fight could last an entire day. Vox trained again and again and again. He knew he couldn't defeat Alastor, but if he could fight him for an entire day, then maybe he could be destroyed by the Exorcist. As one day, Alastor would be walking down the street, a day before the extermination. He was just collecting some food and groceries to get back to his home, when suddenly Vox would walk up behind him. As he would smirk and say, "Going somewhere?" Alastor would say, Vox, asking me to join you again." Suddenly, he would just punch Alastor, send him flying to the ground. He would get up and say, "You're really that stupid, huh?" Vox would then start to laugh. "You know, I used to admire you, look up to you, think highly of you. I thought you were one of the strongest overlords of all time, and I even imagined us being together. TV, radio, old and new, mixing together to control this place. But you threw all that away, Alastor. Now you must go. Your time ends here, right now." As Alastor would say, "You're nothing but an idiot," as giant tentacles came up from the sky and began to try to grab Vox. But Vox would be able to move quickly, using his electricity to launch him around, as he would stay away from Alastor. Even though it was a fight, Vox was staying quite far away from him. Alastor began to get worried, as he knew he was planning something. Alastor would say, "What are you planning?" Vox simply smirked and said, "You'll have to find out." As the fight continued, Vox simply began to run away, more and more. This pissed off Alastor, as Alastor got angrier and angrier, as eventually he was ready to destroy this entire town, every electric grid, just to get rid of him. As suddenly, the day passed, as sirens were heard, as extermination day came. Vox then smirked and said, "I knew this day would come. You'll be wiped out by angels, and me, I already have an escape plan." He would turn into electricity and go away on an electrical wire, as suddenly angels would fall forth. Alastor would put up one heck of a fight, but he was no match, and eventually was slaughtered. As Vox did it, he tricked Alastor and got him destroyed. True, it was indirectly. He wished he could have done it by his own hands, but at least he got rid of him. And now, he can control. After all, he is new, and Alastor, he's just the crap that comes before that. As Vox then could control all of his area and wouldn't have to worry about this radio demon, this outdated piece of work. However, this would affect things in the future, as later Charlie would open her hotel. As Charlie Morningstar opened her hotel, she would finally get a guest, Angel Dust. And she was so excited for him to improve, for him to get better, and for him to do better. It seemed like she could do this. She believed in herself at first. But as the days passed, it got harder and harder. And Angel Dust started to hide some hard stuff, if you know what I mean, around the hotel, which she had to find constantly. But it wasn't too bad. However, one day it will all blow up on her face when a terrible interview happened. And since the radio demon wasn't alive, he wasn't there to help her. And after that, there was nothing but sadness. Angel Dust would say, "Hey, I'm sorry," but she would look and say, "You made me look like a fool, Angel. I know you don't care about this hotel, but I do." She would then begin to cry as she ran up and closed her door and locked it. Vaggie would knock on it, begging her to let her in, but she wouldn't, as she just sat there and cried. Her dream was over. She was now a joke, a laughingstock. As the days passed, though, she began to get chipper again. And even though no one believed in her dream, she still believed in it. And even though she didn't have a staff or anyone else, all she had was angel dust, it could still work. All she needed to do was get her dad on her side. She knew she can do it. She knew if Lucifer himself agreed with her, if he put stock in her plan, then she could get sinners here. And she can redeem people. She knew it was possible. So, she would call up Lucifer and ask him to come over. Lucifer was overjoyed to see his daughter. However, when he arrived, he saw horror. The hotel was almost completely broken down. It was falling apart and barely able to be held up. Charlie asked for staff to help keep it up, and Lucifer would ask, "Why do you need staff? What is this hotel for?" "I told you, Dad, to redeem sinners." Lucifer would sigh and say, "Listen, it's impossible. But Charlie couldn't handle it anymore. She would start to burst in tears and say, "You never believed in me. No one did. I can't believe this. Not even my own father will help me." As she ran up the stairs and shut the door, Lucifer would start to cry and say, "Charlie," as he ran up there. As then he continued the knock. Charlie would eventually open. As then Lucifer would agree to get her a meeting with heaven. But that's it. Charlie would then nod as they looked at each other. As a couple of days would pass, she would go to the meeting, and things would go even worse, as Angel Dust wasn't at a club with his friends, but was at a club with Valentino, partying it up, being used. She was a laughingstock. As she left and went back to hell, she continued to cry. Her life, her plan, it was all falling apart. As a few weeks would pass, things would only get worse and worse for Charlie. As Vaggie was spending more and more time with her, trying to cheer her up, she just couldn't deal with it. She loved her, but doing all this, it was so much. Vaggie would look at her and say, "Listen, I can't do this anymore." Charlie would say, "What? It's either me or the hotel. I care about you, and I thought this idea was great, but it's clearly not working." As she walked out, Charlie began to shake. As then she decided she wouldn't give up. She was going to double down on the hotel. But then Angel Dust looked at her and said, "I'm leaving." "What? Why?" "I'm the only one here. If I leave, the hotel goes. You're not going to throw your life away for this strange obsession. You and Vaggie are happy. You and Vaggie love each other. And, well, I don't want to come between that. Love like that just isn't for me, but it's for you." Angel and Charlie would then hug. As Charlie began to cry, "I'm sorry I ruined everything." Angel would say, "Don't be. I got the crash here rent-free, and maybe I'll see you around someday." Charlie would smile and say, "Yeah, I hope I do. Angel, thank you for giving us a chance, even if we failed." Angel would then laugh and say, "To be honest, I'm surprised we made it this long." As Angel left the hotel, Charlie would leave too, and she would use her powers to demolish it. It was like it was never even there. The hotel was gone and was slowly forgotten, as Charlie went with Vaggie and moved in with her, as they can start a life together. Even though it was hard because, well, extermination continued and sinners were destroyed. It was hard to see her people be destroyed like this. It was hard to see her home be destroyed, but there was nothing she could do about it. And she learned to live with it like everyone else. Slowly, Charlie's heart and Charlie's love began to fade away, as she became depressed, just like Lucifer. Like father, like daughter, it seemed. Oh well, at least she had Vaggie, and at least she had Lucifer. And redeeming sinners, that was just a dumb pipe dream. Impossible. And no one could have helped her out with that. It's not like some guy could have magically appeared and helped her. She was doomed from the start. Bees, without the radio demon, the bees were able to spread their territory, spread their power, and became pretty much unstoppable. And since Fox wasn't focused on his weird obsession with Alastor anymore, he could actually be somewhat productive, as it seemed like everything was changing, and at the same time, nothing changed at all. And that's where we're going to leave things off. I wanted to make a story about what would happen if Alastor, bit the dust, and I think I did a pretty good job of that. Yeah, what do you think would happen if Alastor died? Let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you all, and good night.